All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So I wanted to say greetings, everyone. My name is Andrew Cordova Andrews. I'm co-founder and CEO of Hybrid Helix Consulting. We're a small team, but we're a dynamic force dedicated to providing operational support services that help foster business growth. Additionally, we're working on an inspiring social initiative known as the hashtag Change Tank. You'll be able to find more details on our website. We'll share links at the conclusion of the webinar. But I'm thrilled to have you all with us today. So the topic we're going to be discussing today is particularly significant to me. Um, One of the most valuable lessons I gained from my entire MBA program is the job characteristics model. So I'm very happy to share it with you guys today. Before we jump in, just a few reminders. We're going to have a small group today. We will be recording this session. So if you find anything helpful, please feel free to share the recording with anyone who might benefit. We'll email it out after the session. And you'll also see a Q&A feature on the side. So don't hesitate to ask any questions as they rise, and we'll be happy to address them at the end. And then please note, we've set aside about an hour for this presentation, but after the presentation and Q&A, we're likely to finish earlier. Um, and then let's go ahead and just get started. So before we dive into everything, I did take some time to review responses to the motivation related questions that you guys submitted during registration. And one challenge stood out as particularly important. It was about managing a multi-generational workforce. So I'll chat on that real quick. The good news is that the job characteristics model, we're going to refer to it as a JCM, can significantly impact your organization in this regard. While it might not resolve all communication conflicts or serve as a cure-all, it will enhance the likelihood that individuals will be open on being coached. And of course, with that, that will help them work on self-improvement if such issues arise. Ultimately, JCM boosts job satisfaction, which in turn fosters increased dedication and a willingness to grow. So that's for both your team members and your organization as a whole. This approach is also likely to enhance your retention of valuable team members. So definitely worthwhile to know. Many people often get sidetracked by common stereotypes associated with different generations. I tend to refer to this as a phenomenon I call groupism. It's not intentional. It's just reflects a cognitive bias where our brains take shortcuts instead of investing time to investigate the complexities at play. But believe me, generational experiences are amongst the most intricate and multifaceted aspects of humanity to comprehend. But here, regardless of age, we're just going to think of all individuals as just, being just that diverse life experiences striving to work together. So instead of operating from that place of groupism that categorizes generations as groups, we're going to explore the foundational principles of human psychology. Those principles will drive intrinsic motivation with your team and apply to everyone. So if you're unfamiliar with the job characteristics model, or if you're here for a refresher, it's going to be crucial for you to understand that the forces influencing this model are always present in your organization, whether you're aware of them or not. So by the end of our session, you'll have a practical strategy to stimulate growth in your business to enhance the motivation from your team. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So as I previously mentioned, job characteristics model, or the JCM, is relevant whether we acknowledge it or not. So that means it's possible to unintentionally create a job that doesn't resonate with individuals, particularly amongst the younger generation, who, for various reasons we won't delve into today, tend to anticipate more from the corporate environment. The positive aspect is that the foundations of the JCM stem from both academic and real world research and organizational behavior. This framework has been proven to enhance motivation within your team. And in fact, the research supporting this model demonstrates that it's more logical and directly applicable than even Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, understanding the JCM is like drawing back a curtain that you never noticed before. Once it's revealed, it's going to significantly boost many facets of your business. So let's address the common challenge that many of you have encountered. You're heavily investing in creating an attractive workplace with bonuses, perks, team events, yet you still feel employee engagement remains flat. Low innovation, you could just feel the energy in your team. It feels as though you're pushing a boulder uphill. So today we're going to discuss a different, more impactful approach, focusing on the design of the work itself. And this is where the JCM becomes crucial. All right, so this framework, the JCM, originated in the 1970s, but its relevance remains strong today. This model posits that genuine and enduring motivation stems from the intrinsic nature of the work itself. So in today's discussion, we're going to do a few things. I'm going to break down the model for you. I'm going to show you how to measure its effectiveness. We're going to analyze a modern case study, and we're going to provide you with a practical playbook for application that you could just take right into your work right after this. One key point to emphasize is that intrinsic motivation is the most potent form of motivation. However, it's also most challenging to harness since it resides internally within each individual. So influencing it tends to be difficult, but understanding even just a person's baseline motivation can be difficult because it often requires a closer relationship than that of a boss. Nonetheless, the design of the job itself significantly impacts intrinsic motivation in subtle and profound ways. So let's explore how this works. All right, so this model is centered around five essential characteristics. We're going to explore each one in detail, but first, I want you to think of them as the key ingredients for designing a role that people genuinely enjoy. Our goal is to create an appealing position that motivates them to engage fully. So let's break down each characteristic and we'll have a discussion on how they contribute to three crucial psychological states that foster intrinsic motivation on their own. First is skill variety. This refers to the extent to which a job involves a range of different activities. So basically, requiring you to use various skills and talents. A good example is a factory worker who performs a single monotonous task with a small compared to a small business owner that actually has to manage multiple hats through the day: marketing, sales, customer service, accounting. Very different ranges of skill variety between those two jobs. Task identity. This is an interesting one. It's simply owning the work from start to finish. It measures the degree to which a job entails completing a whole, identifiable piece of work from start to finish. So, an example would be an assembly line worker whose task is limited to attaching a car door, compared to an artisan who crafts an entire piece of custom furniture. These are completely different ends of the scale, and allow you to understand exactly what that is. So next is task significance. Let's talk about what this is. It's essentially how a job significantly impacts the lives or work of others, whether it's within or outside the organization. So a good example of this would be the hospital janitor who cleans floors versus one who actually understands that their critical role in preventing infections and ensuring patient safety. One who identifies more with understanding why their role exists and the impact that it has is going to have greater task significance. And there's ways as leaders we can help raise this that we'll discuss later. Autonomy, pretty straightforward. It denotes the level of freedom and independence an employee has, but in particular, it's about in scheduling their own work and determining how to carry it out. So that those are two degrees of autonomy that you can have. So the best example I have of that is a call center agent down to a very strict script versus a senior consultant who's given projects, goal to set goals, budget, and of course the liberty to choose the best approach. And then feedback is one of the most critical yet forgotten components of designing a great job. This characteristic just pertains to the extent to which performing work activities provides employees with direct and clear information about their performance. You would compare this to a software developer who runs a program and immediately sees the results versus an employee who only receives an annual performance review. All right, so let's talk real quick about the three critical psychological states at play here. The five traits are not merely abstract ideas. They actively contribute to these states within every single individual, doesn't matter what generation you're from. Grasping this connection is crucial for harnessing the power of the job characteristics model. First, we start with experienced mindfulness. Well, I'm sorry, meaningfulness. This is fueled by skill variety, task identity, and task significance. It refers to the deep seated belief that one's work is valuable, worthwhile, and purposeful. It embodies the feeling that your contributions have significance, whether it's for the team's success, the company's mission, or the well being of society. It stands in stark contrast to the feeling of just being a cog in the machine. This is the most impactful of the three psychological states. Let's kind of break down the ingredients of that real quick. Skill variety. When a job allows employees to utilize the diverse range of their abilities and talents, the work naturally feels more meaningful. Engaging different competencies enriches the work experience, make it feel more significant than a monotonous task. Task identities also serves as fuel here. This aspect emphasizes ownership. So, an employee who completes an entire product and attaches their name to it will feel a stronger sense of meaning than one who merely tightens a single bolt. Overseeing a project from start to finish creates a tangible result that they can proudly claim, which increases that experience of meaningfulness. And the last fuel on that fire is task significance. This is the most direct source of meaning. It involves recognizing how one's work affects others. So, in one example, I used to work at T-Mobile, and at T-Mobile, one of the things that they did really well is reassure us exactly the type of impact we were having in people's lives when the cell phone becomes their singular most important way to connect with their family and friends and the people they care about, and even conduct business. So our role in the call center was essential to making sure that that was uninterrupted. And it obviously increased our task significance in that case. Now, in this example for experience meaningfulness, I'm going to give you a story of three bricklayers. When asked about their work, the first reply is, I'm laying bricks. The second says, I'm building a wall. But the third proudly states, I'm building a cathedral. That third bricklayer has discovered meaningfulness. As a leader, it's actually your responsibility to guide your team towards the cathedral. This involves connecting their daily tasks, the bricks, to their larger, inspiring purpose. You achieve this by designing jobs with variety, allowing ownership of complete tasks, and consistently communicating the impact of their efforts. But we'll dive a little bit more into that later. Next is experienced responsibility. This is directly fueled by autonomy as a direct relationship between the state. It basically reflects the sense of personal accountability for work outcomes. It embodies ownership, where employees feel that both their successes and their failures are theirs, and it fosters empowerment and commitment. Granting employees the freedom, independence, and discretion to manage their work schedules, make decisions, and choose their methods inherently bestows responsibility upon them. When they have control over their paths, they cannot blame a micromanager or rigid procedures for the results. The outcomes, good or bad, are theirs alone. If you want employees to be accountable, you must provide them with something to be accountable for. That's the essence of autonomy. It transforms the directive of follow the script and call 50 people into here's your revenue target, here's your territory, you're the CEO of this area. Make it happen. The latter instills a profound sense of responsibility as they own both their actions and the results. To cultivate this, be ready to delegate the outcome, not just the tasks. But if you trust your team with freedom, they're going to reciprocate with responsibility. Last is knowledge of results. This is a very important psychological state. It's fueled directly by feedback. It pertains to how well an employee understands their performance effectiveness on a constant basis. Closing the feedback loop is vital. Without it, motivation dwindles as effort can feel like shouting into a void. Feedback's key to gaining knowledge of results. It can originate from the job itself. So, for example, it could be like a dashboard that displays real time sales data, or it could come from a manager, such as a coaching after a presentation or a client call, or from clients. It's like CSAT and satisfaction ratings. The more immediate and frequent the feedback, the clearer their understanding of the results will be. Annual performance reviews are the least effective method. What employees need is a steady flow of information. Visualize this. You're bowling, but a curtain drops in front of the pins the moment before you release the ball. You'll hear a crash, but you'll never know if it was a strike, a spare, or a gutter ball. How long would you remain motivated to improve your game? Probably not long. That's the reality of working without feedback. Your employees need clarity on their performance, and as leader, your role is to lift that curtain. You have to create systems where performance is visible, data is accessible, and you have to engage in ongoing coaching. Transform feedback from a dreaded annual occurrence, if you're currently doing that, into a daily supportive conversation. All right, so let's talk about how this works in the JCM. There's a metric called the motivation potential score, and it's essentially your diagnostic tool for figuring this all out. We can quantify it using this mathematical formula. Now, it's important to know that it's not just a number, it is a diagnostic tool. It's going to tell you exactly which lever to pull. So let's look at this. First, we have skill variety plus task identity plus task significance. Once these are added together, you multiply that by the total level of autonomy and then multiply that by the level of feedback. Here at Hybrid Helix, when we're measuring this for a business, we usually use a score between 0 and 5 for each metric. Depending on the complexity of your roles, you might want to use a 0 through 10. Just ensure the highest number represents truly the highest version of that category that could exist in your business. So, for example, with skill variety, you'll be maxed out if you're trying to score the business owner who juggles multiple hats per day. 0, though, is a score that's just as important to be honest with yourself with when you're scoring. It means that the job would have no degree of said characteristic whatsoever. And if you have a position that has a 0, it's very important to understand the impact that it actually has. We're going to break this down because there's some very important basic math that you have to understand here. Pay close attention to the calculations presented on the slide. We've used color coding to highlight specifically that autonomy and feedback are multipliers. This is an essential insight. In fact, it's the most significant one. This means that no matter how meaningful a job may be, if an employee lacks freedom or clarity about their performance, their motivation will be non existent. It zeroes out the entire equation. You cannot substitute a lack of autonomy with increased significance. It simply becomes irrelevant. The multipliers are often the simplest elements to address when designing jobs that foster intrinsic motivation. However, it's crucial to remember that the other three categories must not be overlooked. A score of 0 on the left side of the equation is just as detrimental to motivation as one on the right. The NPS formula can be incredibly useful for comparative analysis. It allows you to run calculations in a spreadsheet across various roles within your organization. And if you did that, you'll likely find that roles with the highest NPS numbers correlate with natural high performers in your organization, individuals that you want to duplicate. Using this formula in such an exercise is going to provide you with a tangible sense of the motivation across your organization and where it should be at based on their job design. So let's talk about this in the contemporary case study, the gig economy. The gig economy serves as a radical case study in applying the JCM, even if the companies involved don't explicitly acknowledge it. Now, here at Hybrid Helix, we criticize these companies' business models for negative impacts on employees. However, these companies do exemplify the JCM model effectively in today's world. Where, when you take a look at a gig worker's job through the JCM lens, you see high scores on identity and significance, and extremely high scores on the multipliers, autonomy, and feedback, and even a decent score on variety, as each task is a different location, restaurant, or experience. This is the engine that's attracted millions of workers to their organizations. The NPS score for a gig worker is massive. It comes in at 250 points. You get 10 points from the first two categories, multiply by 5 for 50, and then by 5 again, and you get 250. It's honestly the highest score off of a 5-point system in the JCM I've seen in a job that hasn't otherwise been crafted with this system specifically in mind. In fact, I doubt these companies are unaware of this model and its effects, as it's very likely it was in use when they were designing it. Now, it is important. As strategic leaders, we must be critical. Uber and DoorDash are a masterclass in the application of JCM, but not necessarily a model for holistic long-term employee partnership. They show us how powerful these levers are, but they also serve as a cautionary tale. They're essentially making a strategic trade-off. This gamified version of motivation comes at a cost: lack of stability, benefits, fair wage protections, and even human oversight. In fact, algorithmic management can feel like a new faceless boss, which exasperates the generational gap even further. The key takeaway is that the gig economy proves the power of the JCM levers, but also reveals the pitfalls of focusing on them exclusively. So, how can we take these powerful lessons and apply them effectively? Let's move to a practical action plan. I'm going to give you concrete strategies for each characteristic for you to consider. If you need tailored individual suggestions for improving your workplace, you'll receive a booking link at the end of this presentation that you can use for a free consultation with me about your job design, and we'd be happy to help you build a better blueprint for your roles. But let's talk about strategies. First, let's see what we need to do to boost meaningfulness. To enhance meaningfulness, think about job enrichment. Instead of an assembly line, create craftspeople. Combine tasks so that someone owns a whole module of work. And crucially, connect them to the people they impact. Share customer stories, bring clients in, show them the cathedral. Here you can see a couple of suggestions for that. One is to form natural work units, like a client team that own a specific process, key result, or a specific client. Job rotation can also be effective here. Meeting everyone with certain KPI, well, basically everyone meeting with a certain KPI can go maybe into some type of rotation schedule that changes their responsibilities, maybe on a frequent or infrequent basis. Project-based work, that's a huge, easy one to hit. Projects grow your businesses, they grow your services, they grow your ability to adapt to changing conditions. So strive to empower your team with projects, and you're going to automatically start increasing these areas. Job enrichment. I just can't tell you how much of an impact this can have. Job rotation, project-based work, it just shows trust. It trains them for leadership, and ultimately, it increases the intrinsic motivation your team experiences. Oh, and then one last thing here that I'll point out, that trick of letting clients join meetings so that way they can hear the feedback, that's great. So if you're going to be having a client meeting, presenting some kind of deliverable your team created, allow the team to be there, let them hear it, or at least get a recording of it and share it with them. To boost responsibility, you have to give it away. You have to delegate true authority, provide a budget, and let your team make things happen. For knowledge of results, lift the curtain. Build systems where performance is visible in real time. Be visual by showing them the economic factors in the business, allowing them to see their performance affects the health of the entire company. This, in return, can lead to benefits, not only to them, but to you. Turn the dreaded annual review into continuous supportive coaching conversations. If you can't make it a daily, make it weekly. As a leader, it's critical you support and spearhead the process from a corner of positivity. Focus on how to get them where they want to be. This is about them, and that's what's going to drive that motivation. All right. So to recap, we have 5 characteristics that drive 3 psychological states. As leaders, our most powerful lever for motivation isn't another carrot or stick, it's not a new perk, and it's not spending more money. It's being intentional architects of the work itself and letting the intrinsic motivation drive your business forward. So, I have homework for you guys. I would challenge you, if you attended this, to go ahead and pick one role in the organization, assess it against the 5 characteristics, find its weakest link, and see if you can brainstorm one practical change. Remember, don't try to boil the ocean. Just find one thing to improve at a time. So that's it. We have the little call to action. Love to hear the role you're analyzing and the change you're considering if it's already come to you. Now, of course, help us learn from each other. We also encourage you to check out our website, our social mission, or even get a free consultation from our team. Since we had a small group today, it didn't look like there were any questions submitted. So I think we're going to be ending it here. But we'll be emailing out a recording. So don't forget to sign up for updates if you wish to receive future webinars and promotions for our team. Thank you so much for viewing.